All right, so let's start with Lenovo. They had, besides announcing a new Amazon Echo-based
yes, there were some other things.
tube.
Yep.
They announced new PCs. In fact, one Lenovo, I can't wait to buy.
I mean, right now there are two computers that are top of my list because I'm thinking about buying a laptop this year. And one is the new X1 Carbon, which is always awesome.
That's the one I want.
Yeah. And then the other one is the 15-inch version of the HP Spectre X360, which looks beautiful. So I'll review both of those and see how it goes. But the interesting thing is, before Lenovo revealed any of this stuff the other day, about a week ago, they kind of came out with this announcement about ThinkPad in 2017 and how they were going to switch things up. And there were three pieces to it, all of which are really fascinating to me. One is that they're adopting Microsoft's signature PC program. They're the first major PC maker to sell signature PCs directly from their own website. Amazing,
hallelujah.
Right?
Hallelujah.
By the way, what took so long? It's been 7 years.
Do you think it has some of that has to do with them, with Superfish and the stuff that Lenovo was putting on its PCs?
Yeah, so that's okay. Interesting story there. Yes and no, right? So the ThinkPads didn't suffer from Superfish, right? That was Lenovo's other consumer PCs. ThinkPads have always had far less crapware on them than IdeaPad or Yoga, whatever. But they in some ways have loaded them up over the years. I would say over the past year or two, one of the things I've seen from both HP and Lenovo on their premium PCs like ThinkPad is a dropping down of that stuff. Like that, the stuff you get in the box is kind of necessary for the device. They don't put a bunch of stuff in the taskbar or on the desktop anymore like they used to. And if you run something that company wants to put in the taskbar, they'll ask you, and you can say no. And that to me is an incredible step. Going full signature is even better. But the thing I will remind people about Lenovo, because I think people either don't know this or they forgot, before there was a signature PC program, Lenovo was the only PC maker that signed up to something called the Velocity program at Microsoft. It was something they were doing in the build-up to Windows 7, and it became Signature. It was basically the first version of Signature. And so if you go back and look at the PCs they sold that year when Windows 7 first came out, they all had little Velocity tags on them, like little stickers and stuff. And the idea was that they worked with Microsoft to reduce the boot time, to reduce the shutdown and resume time, to make sure the drivers were always up to date. It was basically the first version of Signature. It literally was the first version. The reason the Signature program happened was because no one else signed on board. So Velocity was just Lenovo. But what that shows me is that Lenovo has always actually cared about this stuff. I mean, Superfish is a really terrible example of the contrary to that. But I think it was obviously a mistake, right? It wasn't malicious, but it was I don't know. It's not completely unique. I know there were other events, but I mean, it's too bad this happened to Lenovo in a way, because I think they've always actually tried with this stuff.
Well, and it's a reasonable response if people are concerned to say, all right, well, we're going to do a signature PC, which can't have that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
look,
the
Lenovo has problems Dell and HP don't. Like, for example, they're from China.
Right.
And even though
That's
I think we all
true,
understand that ThinkPads are made in North Carolina, or designed in North Carolina, they always have been, or whatever. But
they still are.
Oh yeah, that whole team is still there. That all happens there. But
okay,
yeah,
that's the old IBM team.
Yeah, it literally is. I deal with the same people that were at IBM.
Wow.
That said, it's owned by a Chinese company, and I think for some people there's always going to be that little bit of mistrust when something like Superfish happens. It's terrible. It would have been terrible if it happened to Dell, but it happened to a company that is Chinese, and so of course people are like, oh, here we go. Like we're all waiting to discover this and kind of backdoor.
Right.
Anyway, I don't believe that stuff exists, but I think they've done a great job. Anyway, there were two other things that they announced ahead of CS. One was that they're dropping their proprietary one-link docking solution and embracing USB-C / Thunderbolt 3. Super smart. By the way, everyone is. I mean,
everybody's doing that, and that's a great dock solution.
Yeah, and it's funny because the one-link plus thing was actually very, very good and was very close to what USB-C Thunderbolt 3 is. But this is them embracing standards and all that kind of stuff, and it's just awesome. So that's good. And then the other one was they're adopting Microsoft's Precision Touchpad standard, which is also awesome. We're starting to see that from other PC makers too. I know Dell's done it. Some other companies are announcing it at CS. I believe there's been some leaked documentation that suggests that Precision Touchpad support will in fact one day become a requirement for that Design for Windows logo that they get for the box. That's not a fact, but I believe that's going to happen. So this is basically them just moving quick to make it happen. And so, again, kudos to them on all of those things, right? And this all happened before we even knew what these computers were going to be. And then they announced them. Of course, they're awesome. Right? I mean, they're awesome. So there's a... Yeah.
It's the music. I'm sorry. I did from
No, that's good.
They're going to have LTE in it, in the ThinkPad Carbon.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, but it's, X1 Carbon obviously is the kind of the flagship Ultrabook. There's an X1 Yoga, which is was actually tied for my best computer of 2016. It's an incredible device, basically a transforming or convertible version of the X1. And then there's an X1 tablet, which can work like a 2-in-1 device as well, where the screen splits off right from the base. So this has become...
The Carbon is the regular kind of laptop-y one.
Yeah.
Okay. But is it the same kind of stuff inside the Yoga?
Yeah, so the differences there off the top of my head, there's just a couple. I mean, because of, if you think about how it kind of bends back onto itself and becomes a tablet, they actually designed the keyboard so that it sinks into the device as that happens. So if you put it backwards in like a presentation mode, or if you have it in tablet mode, the keyboard actually sinks back into the device.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so it doesn't touch anything.
That always bothers me about the 2-in-1s is that you're putting the keyboard on the desk.
Yeah, it's a really cool device. I mean, for me, I just don't use it enough in that mode to spend the extra money.
Yeah, but that's, I think, as opposed to a detaching screen.
I prefer this.
This is kind of a sensible. I mean, it doesn't get any lighter, but you're not giving up any. Like when I detach the Surface Book, I lose a lot of battery.
Yep.
And it's got the pen. Nice.
Yeah, it comes with the pen. Yep.
That might be the one I want. And everything's Thunderbolt now with this new Thunderbolt dock.
Yeah. The other thing I like about these devices is they're 14, not 13-inch screens. And of course, one of the big things they did this year is what everyone else is doing, which is you put the big screen in the smaller form factor. So it's like a 13-inch form factor device, but with a 14-inch screen.
Yeah.
I really love that move, but I prefer bigger screens, which is one of the reasons I'm thinking about a 15-inch for this year. But 14 is just about
14's
right.
14's a nice compromise, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so that's the Yoga. I'm looking at the cell videos for all of these.
Yeah, the one thing they haven't done, and I talked to HP about this. I'm going to talk to Lenovo about this week. As you squeeze these bigger screens into smaller forms, you start to see like there's a little bit of lip, at the top and bottom of the screen, like a bezel.
Yeah, and
you get it's like kind of edgeless on the right and left. And my whole thing is like, guys, go completely edgeless and make it a 3x2 screen. There's exactly enough room there.
I agree.
And no one has said yes to me, but I wouldn't be surprised if next year that's where they go next.
They're still doing 16.9. Microsoft's all 3.2 now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the next. I think that's going to become the standard for PC.
I kind of agree with you. I like 3.2. This is the Mix, which is their Surface basically clone.
That's right. Yep.
The Mix 720. All right.
Yeah. So
Dell announced a bezel-less, the XPS 13 that is now in the 2-in-1 form factor. Right. Which of the two do you think, the Yoga or the Dell XPS Bendy?
Yoga, definitely over the XPS 13. It's interesting. Dell was the first one with that kind of edgeless display.
Right.
But they put the webcam at the bottom, which to me is just
it's weird. It's up your nose. On the other hand, it's exactly the right. Now it's in the center at least, and it's in exactly the right place if you bend it around, which you might be doing if you're Skyping.
Okay, that's not bad.
So it's. I think that might not be such a negative anymore. I don't know. Okay, I agree with you. I have several of the XPS 13s, including the bezel-less one, which I love.
I'll look at the new one. I mean, the one that transforms now.
Yeah.
The first gen version, everyone was so gaga over the screen, but I had lots of problems with the power management and also with the wireless connectivity, and they switched all that stuff up in Gen 2, so they fixed that. But I think edgeless is cool. No one really is doing edgeless in every direction because they do want a webcam or whatever, and I kind of get that. But if you look at HP's design, there's a big bezel at the bottom. It's like, guys, 3x2, anybody?
So 3x2, you think would just kind of eliminate that?
Yeah, I think it would basically remove the remaining bezel. It'd be perfect.
Interesting.